The hijackers thought they had won. 3 armed men. 173 terrified passengers. A locked cockpit and nowhere to run at 35,000 feet. But they made one fatal mistake. They didn't know the quiet woman in seat 14C was a trained killer. A combat pilot. A weapon. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The Boeing 737 cut through the morning sky at 35,000 feet. Flight AA-492 from Miami to Seattle carried 173 passengers. Most of them were reading, sleeping, or watching movies on their phones. In seat 14C, a woman sat alone by the window. She wore a simple gray sweater and jeans. Her dark hair was tied in a loose ponytail. She looked like any other passenger. Tired, maybe a bit bored. Her name was Emma Carter. She was 34 years old. But Emma Carter wasn't just another passenger. Nobody on that flight knew who she really was. And that was exactly how she wanted it. The flight had been smooth so far. 2 hours into the journey, the cabin crew moved through the aisles with drinks and snacks. Emma declined the coffee. She stared out the window at the clouds below. Her mind was far away, thinking about things most people never think about. Altitude. Speed. Wind patterns. Emergency procedures. Old habits die hard. In the row ahead, a young mother struggled with her crying baby. The woman looked exhausted. Emma felt sympathy but said nothing. She kept to herself. That was her way now. Across the aisle in seat 14D, an elderly man read a newspaper. Behind her, 2 college students laughed at something on a phone screen. Everything was normal. Everything was calm. Then the bathroom door at the front of the plane opened. And everything changed. A man stepped out of the bathroom. He was tall, wearing a black jacket. His face was cold and hard. In his hand was a knife. "Nobody move," he shouted. The cabin went silent. Heads turned. Eyes went wide. Before anyone could react, 2 more men stood up from their seats. They had been sitting in different rows, pretending to be normal passengers. Now they moved quickly toward the front and back of the plane. One man grabbed a flight attendant. The other blocked the aisle. "This plane is now under our control," the first man announced. His accent was thick, Eastern European maybe. "Everyone stay in your seats. Stay quiet. Nobody gets hurt if you cooperate." A woman screamed. A child started crying. The man with the knife pointed at them. "Quiet. Or I will make an example." The cockpit door was locked, as it always was after September 11th. But one of the hijackers had a tool. He worked on the door while the other 2 watched the passengers. Emma's body tensed. Her eyes moved fast, taking in everything. 3 men. Armed with knives. Organized. They had planned this. She counted the exits. 2 emergency doors, one at the front, one at the rear. But they were sealed during flight. The cockpit door. Windows. No good options. Her training kicked in automatically. Assess the threat. Count the enemy. Find the weakness. But she pushed it down. She was not that person anymore. She had left that life behind. She was just a passenger. Just Emma Carter. She had to stay invisible. The hijacker broke through the cockpit door. There were sounds of struggle, then silence. Minutes later, he emerged. "The pilots are cooperating. We are changing course. You will all be safe if you follow instructions." One of the passengers, a man in a business suit, stood up. "Where are you taking us? What do you want?" The hijacker moved fast. He grabbed the man and threw him back into his seat. I said stay quiet. The businessman's face went pale. He nodded quickly. Another hijacker, younger than the first, walked down the aisle. He collected phones. Everyone. Phones. Now. Put them in the bag. Passengers obeyed. They dropped their phones into a black garbage bag. Some were crying. Others sat frozen in fear. The hijacker stopped at Emma's row. Phone. Give it. Emma handed over her phone without looking up. Her hands were steady. Too steady. The hijacker paused. He studied her face for a moment. Most passengers were shaking, crying, panicking. This woman was calm. You are not scared, he asked. Emma looked down. I am terrified, she said quietly. The hijacker grunted and moved on. But Emma's mind was racing. She had seen enough. These men were serious. They knew what they were doing. This was not a random act. And they were going to get people killed. 30 minutes passed. The plane had changed course. Nobody knew where they were going. The hijackers kept control. One stayed in the cockpit. Two patrolled the aisles. The passengers sat in silence. Some prayed. Others held hands with loved ones. Emma's eyes followed the hijackers' movements. She was memorizing patterns. The tall one in the black jacket was the leader. He gave orders. He was confident, maybe military trained. The younger one was nervous. He kept touching his knife. His eyes darted around. He was dangerous because he was unpredictable. The third man, the one in the cockpit, she couldn't assess yet. In the row ahead, the young mother was trying to calm her baby. The baby's cries were getting louder. The nervous hijacker walked over. Make that baby quiet. I'm trying, the mother said, her voice shaking. Please, he's just scared. I don't care. Shut him up or I will. The mother started crying. The baby cried louder. Emma's jaw tightened. Her hands gripped the armrest. Not yet, she told herself. Wait. Timing is everything. But when the hijacker raised his hand toward the mother, something inside Emma snapped. Hey, Emma said. The hijacker turned. What? Leave her alone. The baby is scared. Hitting her won't help. The hijacker's eyes narrowed. You again. The calm one. He walked over to Emma. Maybe you need a lesson too. Emma looked up at him. Her gray eyes were cold. Maybe you need to think about what you're doing. Hurting a mother and baby won't help you. It will only make people panic. And panic makes things unpredictable. The hijacker blinked. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. This woman was not begging. She was not crying. She was speaking to him like a commander. The leader walked over. What's the problem? This woman, the nervous one said. She talks too much. The leader studied Emma. What's your name? Emma. Emma what? Just Emma. You are very brave, Emma. Or very stupid. He leaned close. Which is it? Emma met his gaze. I just don't want anyone to get hurt. That includes you. The leader laughed. You worry about us? How kind. He straightened up. Back to your seat. Stay quiet. Or my friend here will forget his manners. Emma nodded and looked away. But the leader kept watching her. Something about this woman bothered him. She was too calm. Too controlled. Who was she? An hour into the hijacking, a man in the back stood up. He was young, muscular, maybe military. We can't just sit here, he shouted. There's 3 of them and over 100 of us. The leader moved fast. He grabbed the young man and put the knife to his throat. Anyone else wants to be a hero? The cabin went silent. I thought so. The leader pushed the young man back into his seat. Let me make this clear. We are not here to hurt you. We are making a political statement. In a few hours, we land in Cuba. You go free. Everyone goes home. He looked around the cabin. But if anyone tries to fight, people die. Starting with him. He pointed at the young man. Then her. He pointed at the mother with the baby. Then anyone else I choose. The message was clear. Obey or people die. But Emma saw something else. The leader was getting agitated. The nervous one was sweating. They were under pressure too. Hijackings were hard to maintain. The longer it went, the more chances for things to go wrong. She glanced at her watch. They had been airborne for 3 hours total. Fuel was limited. They would have to land soon. That's when they would be most vulnerable. Emma closed her eyes and tried to push away the memories. But they came anyway. 10 years ago, she had been Captain Emma Carter, United States Air Force. She flew F-16 Fighting Falcons. She had over 2,000 flight hours. 3 combat deployments. 12 medals. She was one of the best pilots in her squadron. But then came the mission that changed everything. A rescue operation in hostile territory. Her squadron was providing air cover. Everything went wrong. Enemy fire was heavier than expected. One of her wingmen was hit. She watched his plane spiral down. She heard his last words on the radio. She couldn't save him. After that mission, something broke inside her. She finished her service, but when her contract ended, she didn't re-enlist. She walked away from the Air Force. From flying. From everything. She changed her name. Moved to a small town. Got a simple job as a bookkeeper. She wanted peace. She wanted normal. She never wanted to make life or death decisions again. But here she was. On a hijacked plane. With people who needed help. And she was the only one who could do something about it. The elderly man across the aisle leaned over. He whispered, "Miss, are you okay? You look different." Emma glanced at him. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." His eyes were sharp despite his age. "I was military. Army, 30 years. I know that look. You're assessing. Planning." Emma's eyes widened slightly. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." He smiled gently. "Whatever you're thinking of doing, be careful. These men are dangerous." "I'm not thinking of doing anything." "Liar." But he said it kindly. "If you need help, signal me. I'm too old to fight, but I can cause a distraction." Emma looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slightly. The old soldier sat back in his seat. He understood. He had seen soldiers before. He knew what they looked like when they were preparing for battle. This quiet woman in the gray sweater was a soldier. And she was about to go to war. The plane hit turbulence. Mild, but enough to shake the cabin. The hijackers stumbled slightly. Emma saw her chance. The nervous hijacker was walking past her row. His attention was on the passengers in the back. Emma moved. It happened in 3 seconds. She stood up. Grabbed the hijacker's wrist. Twisted it with perfect technique. The knife fell. Before he could shout, her other hand struck his throat. Just enough to choke off his air. He collapsed into the aisle. The entire cabin gasped. The leader spun around. What? But Emma was already moving. She kicked the knife toward the old soldier, who grabbed it. "Stay down, she commanded the passengers. Her voice was different now. Clear. Strong. The voice of someone used to giving orders in combat. The leader charged at her. He was bigger, stronger. But Emma had something he didn't. Training. Real training. Years of it. She sidestepped his rush. Used his momentum against him. Grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back. He cried out in pain. The third hijacker burst out of the cockpit. He saw his partners down. He saw Emma standing in the aisle. "Who are you?" he shouted. Emma didn't answer. She didn't have to. The hijacker lunged at her with his knife. Emma moved like water. Dodge. Deflect. Strike. The knife clattered to the floor. The hijacker's nose broke with a crack. He fell backward, unconscious before he hit the ground. The entire cabin was silent. Everyone stared at the woman in the gray sweater. She stood in the aisle, breathing steady. 3 hijackers lay on the floor. All neutralized in less than 60 seconds. The elderly soldier smiled. "I knew it." Emma picked up the knives and handed them to the old soldier. "Watch them. If they move, shout." "Yes, ma'am." He said it with military respect. Emma walked to the cockpit. The door was damaged but still closed. She knocked. "Pilots, this is Emma Carter. The hijackers are neutralized. You can open the door." A shaky voice came from inside. "How do we know you're not with them?" "You don't. But I'm your only option right now." A pause. Then the lock clicked. The door opened. 2 pilots stared at her. One had a bruise on his face. The other looked terrified. "Are you okay?" Emma asked. The captain nodded. "Who are you?" "Police." "Air Marshal?" "Neither. I'm just a passenger." She glanced at the controls. "But I used to fly. Can you get us back on course?" "Yes. But we need to contact air traffic control. Let them know we're safe." "Do it." Emma turned back to the cabin. The passengers were starting to whisper. Some were crying with relief. Others were still in shock. The young mother stood up, holding her baby. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Emma nodded. "Just stay calm. We'll be landing soon." A businessman called out, "How did you do that?" "Who are you?" Emma hesitated. She had spent years avoiding this question. Years hiding who she was. But there was no hiding now. "My name is Captain Emma Carter," she said quietly. "United States Air Force, retired. I flew fighter jets for 10 years. The cabin erupted in whispers. "You're a pilot. You're military. Why didn't you say something before?" Emma looked around at all the faces staring at her. "Because I left that life behind. I didn't want to be that person anymore." The elderly soldier spoke up. "But you are that person. You can't hide from who you are." Emma met his eyes. He was right. She knew it. You can't hide from yourself. The captain's voice came over the intercom, steadier now. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Thanks to the actions of a very brave passenger, the situation has been resolved. We are diverting to Denver International Airport where emergency services will meet us. Please remain seated and calm." Emma returned to her seat. Her hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was wearing off. The elderly soldier leaned over. "First time that's happened since you left the service?" Emma nodded. "I thought I was done with this. The universe had other plans." He extended his hand. "George Patterson. Master Sergeant, retired." She shook it. "Emma Carter. Captain, retired. Not sure you're as retired as you thought, Captain. Emma looked down at the three hijackers. Other passengers had helped tie them up with seatbelt straps and cloth from torn shirts. They lay unconscious in the aisle, defeated not by a tactical team or air marshals, but by a woman in a gray sweater who just wanted to be left alone. A flight attendant approached, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. They hurt my colleague. Pushed her into the galley. I thought." She couldn't finish. "It's over now," Emma said gently. "How is she?" "Bruised, scared, but she'll be okay. Thanks to you." More passengers came forward. An older woman touched Emma's shoulder. A teenage boy gave her a thumbs up. A man in his 50s just nodded with respect. The young mother sat down in the empty seat next to Emma, still holding her baby. "I don't even know what to say. When he raised his hand to me, I thought, and then you. Anyone would have done the same." "No." The mother shook her head firmly. "No, they wouldn't. Most people would have been too afraid. I was too afraid. But you weren't." "I was terrified," Emma admitted. "But you acted anyway. That's what makes you different." The mother adjusted her baby, who had finally fallen asleep. "What's your name?" "Your full name?" "Emma Sarah Carter." "I'm Rachel. Rachel Martinez. And this is Daniel." She looked at her sleeping son. "He's 6 months old. Because of you, he'll get to see 7 months. And a year. And grow up." Emma felt her throat tighten. "I'm glad. I'll never forget you. Never. When he's old enough, I'll tell him about the woman who saved us." As the plane began its descent toward Denver, Emma found herself surrounded by passengers who wanted to talk, to thank her, to understand what had happened. The businessman who had initially challenged the hijackers approached. "I feel like an idiot. I stood up and accomplished nothing. You took all 3 down in under a minute." "You were brave," Emma said. "Speaking up took courage. Courage without skill is just stupidity. You had both." A woman from the back of the plane called out, "Were you special forces or something?" "Fighter pilot," Emma answered. "Air Force." "I knew it." A man in a Broncos jersey pumped his fist. "My brother's Air Force. He told me about the training you guys go through. Hand-to-hand combat, survival, all of it." "SEER training," Emma confirmed. "Survival, evasion, resistance, escape. Every pilot has to do it in case we're shot down behind enemy lines." "Did that happen to you?" someone asked. Emma's expression darkened. "Once. Afghanistan. 2019, but I was lucky. Extracted after 18 hours. The cabin went quiet. These passengers were beginning to understand that the woman who saved them had lived through things they couldn't imagine. George, the retired sergeant, spoke up. "The captain here has probably seen and done things that would give us nightmares. And yet she walked away from it all. Tried to live a normal life." "Why did you leave?" Rachel asked. Emma was quiet for a long moment. She had never talked about this with strangers. Never talked about it with anyone except the Air Force therapists. But these people had earned the truth. "I lost someone," she said finally. "My wingman. Lieutenant Jake Morrison. He was 26 years old. Engaged to be married. We were flying cover for a rescue mission in Syria. Enemy fire was worse than intel suggested. His plane took a hit." She paused, staring at her hands. "I watched him go down. Heard him on the radio. He knew he wasn't going to make it. His last words were, 'Tell Sarah I love her.' Sarah was his fiancée. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't save him." The cabin was completely silent now. "After that, I finished my tour. But I couldn't keep flying. Couldn't keep making decisions that got people killed. So I left. Changed my name legally. Moved to a small town in Montana. Got a job as a bookkeeper. Tried to forget. But you couldn't forget, George said softly. No. You can't forget. The training, the instincts, they stay with you. I'd be in a grocery store and find myself plotting escape routes. I'd hear a loud noise and drop into a combat stance. My therapist called it hypervigilance. I called it hell. A middle-aged woman spoke up. But today, all that training saved lives. Maybe, Emma said. Or maybe I just got lucky. No. George shook his head. Luck is when things work out despite poor planning. What you did was skill. Timing. Training. You saw the opportunity and took it. The plane shook slightly as it descended through clouds. The Denver airport was visible below. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom again. Flight crew, prepare for landing. Emma looked out the window. She could see emergency vehicles surrounding the runway. Fire trucks, ambulances, police cars. The entire airport had been mobilized. They're going to want to talk to you, George said. FBI, probably. Local police. Maybe even Homeland Security. I know. You're going to be famous. This will be all over the news. Emma grimaced. I don't want to be famous. I just want to go home. Where's home? Was supposed to be Seattle. I have a job interview there. Small accounting firm. Quiet work. George laughed. Something tells me that interview is going to go differently than planned. The wheels touched down. The plane landed smoothly, and the passengers erupted in applause. But they weren't applauding the pilots. They were looking at Emma. She felt her face flush. Please, don't. But they kept clapping. Some were crying. Others were cheering. The plane taxied to a remote part of the airport, away from the normal gates. Through the window, Emma could see at least 30 official vehicles waiting. Here we go, she muttered. The plane stopped. The pilot came out of the cockpit, followed by the co-pilot. Both looked exhausted but relieved. The captain approached Emma. Ms. Carter. I don't know what to say. You saved this aircraft and everyone on it. You were flying fine, Emma said. I just dealt with the problem in the back. We were following their orders. Flying to Cuba like they demanded. We had no choice. He shook his head. But you gave us a choice. You gave all of us a choice. The forward door opened. FBI agents entered first, weapons drawn, movements cautious. They secured the 3 hijackers, who were now conscious but still dazed and bound. A woman in a dark suit entered. She was in her 40s, with short blonde hair and sharp eyes. I'm Special Agent Karen Walsh, FBI. Who neutralized the hijackers? Every passenger pointed at Emma. Agent Walsh looked at her. You? Yes, ma'am. Are you law enforcement? Air Marshal? No, ma'am. Retired Air Force. The agent's eyebrows rose. Pilot? Fighter pilot. F-16s. 10 years of service. Agent Walsh studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. That explains a lot. We're going to need a full statement from you. But first, medical needs to check you out. I'm fine. Regulations. You were involved in a physical altercation on an aircraft. We need documentation. Emma sighed but nodded. The evacuation began. Passengers filed out slowly, many stopping to touch Emma's shoulder or thank her again. Rachel, the young mother, hugged her tightly. I'll never forget you, Rachel whispered. Take care of that baby. I will. Because of you, I will. When Emma finally stepped onto the stairs leading down from the plane, she was met with a wall of flashing cameras. News crews had somehow gotten access to the tarmac. Reporters shouted questions. Ms. Carter. How did you do it? Were you scared? Are you a hero? What do you want to say to the hijackers? Emma kept her head down and said nothing. An FBI agent led her to a waiting vehicle. But before she got in, she heard a voice. Captain Carter. She turned. It was the young man who had tried to resist the hijackers earlier. The one the leader had threatened to kill. Thank you for saving my life, he called out. I was stupid to stand up like that. You were brave, Emma called back. Don't forget that. He saluted her. It was sloppy, civilian, but heartfelt. Emma returned the salute, crisp and military. Then she got in the vehicle and the door closed, shutting out the noise and chaos. The FBI's Denver field office was a maze of corridors and conference rooms. Emma was led to a small room with a table, 4 chairs, and a camera in the corner. Agent Walsh sat across from her. Another agent, a tall man with graying hair, stood by the door. This is Agent Ramirez, Walsh said. He'll be observing. Can we get you anything? Water, coffee? Water would be good. Ramirez left and returned with a bottle. Emma drank half of it in one go. Okay, Walsh said, opening a notepad. Let's start from the beginning. What were you doing on Flight AA-492? Traveling to Seattle for a job interview. What kind of job? Accountant. Small firm. Boring work. Walsh smiled slightly. Something tells me boring suits you. It used to. Emma set down the water bottle. Can I ask something first? Go ahead. Are the pilots okay? And the flight attendants? One of them was hurt. All in good condition. Shaken up but alive, thanks to you. Emma nodded, relieved. Now, tell me what happened. From the moment the hijacking began. Emma described everything. The man emerging from the bathroom. The 2 accomplices revealing themselves. The collection of phones. The forced entry into the cockpit. You noticed a lot of details, Walsh observed. Most witnesses are vague. You're giving me precise information. Military training. We're taught to observe and remember. Tell me about your service record. Emma outlined her career. Flight school. Assignment to the 49th Fighter Wing. 3 deployments. Combat missions over Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq. And you left, why? Emma's jaw tightened. Personal reasons. Ms. Carter, I need to understand your background fully. Were you discharged dishonorably? Honorable discharge. End of contract. I chose not to re-enlist. Why not? You were a captain. Good record. Why walk away? Emma was silent for a moment. Then she told Agent Walsh what she had told the passengers. About Jake Morrison. About watching him die. About the guilt and the nightmares. Walsh's expression softened. I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. So I left. Tried to build a normal life. But today, that training kicked back in. Yes. Walk me through the takedown. Step by step. Emma described the moment. The turbulence. The opportunity. The techniques she used. Where did you learn those techniques? SEER School. Hand-to-hand combat training. Every military pilot goes through it. Most pilots couldn't do what you did. Most pilots don't use it. They don't need to. I didn't think I'd ever need it either. Agent Ramirez spoke up for the first time. The hijacker you took down first, the nervous one. His wrist is fractured. You did that barehanded? Yes. The leader has a dislocated shoulder. Yes. And the third one has a broken nose and a concussion. Yes. Emma met his gaze. Was I supposed to ask them nicely to stop? Ramirez held up his hands. I'm not criticizing. I'm impressed. 3 trained men, all armed, all neutralized by one person in under a minute. That's remarkable. They weren't that well trained, Emma said. The nervous one telegraphed his movements. The leader was overconfident. The third one was sloppy. And you saw all that while you were supposedly just a scared passenger. Old habits. Walsh leaned back in her chair. Ms. Carter, you're going to be a media sensation. This story is already spreading. Former fighter pilot saves plane. You're going to be on every news channel by tonight. Emma closed her eyes. I don't want that. I understand. But it's going to happen regardless. Can you keep my name out of it? We can try, but with over 170 witnesses, many of whom have phones back now, your name is already out there. Great. There's something else. Walsh opened a folder. The hijackers. We've identified them. They're part of a larger organization. This wasn't random. Emma's eyes sharpened. What organization? I can't share details of an ongoing investigation. But what I can tell you is that by stopping them, you likely prevented something much worse than a simple hijacking. Worse how? These men had connections to groups that have been on our watch list. We've been tracking them for months. We think today was a test run. A test run for what? Walsh was quiet for a moment. Something bigger. We're still piecing it together. But your actions today may have saved more than just the people on that plane. Emma absorbed this. So what happens now? Now, you give us a formal statement. We document everything. You'll probably need to testify eventually, when this goes to trial. And then? Walsh shrugged. Then you're free to go. Just like that. Just like that. You're not under investigation. You acted in self-defense and defense of others. No laws were broken. What about the media? We'll do our best to control the narrative. But Ms. Carter, you're a hero. People are going to want to hear your story. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who couldn't sit by and watch people get hurt. Walsh smiled. That's exactly what a hero is. 3 hours later, Emma was finally released from FBI custody. They provided her with a hotel room at a nearby Marriott, since her original flight plans were obviously disrupted. She collapsed on the bed, exhausted. Her phone, which had been returned to her, buzzed constantly. Messages, calls, friend requests from people she didn't know. She turned it off. There was a knock at the door. Emma tensed instinctively, then relaxed. She checked the peephole. It was George, the elderly veteran from the plane. She opened the door. How did you find me? I asked the FBI agent nicely. Told her I wanted to check on you. He held up a bag. Brought dinner. Figured you hadn't eaten. Emma's stomach growled in response. Come in. They ate Chinese food from containers, sitting in the hotel's small sitting area. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, George said, You okay? I don't know. I thought I was done with all this. I built a whole life around being done with this. You can't run from yourself forever. That's what everyone keeps saying. Because it's true. George set down his container. I retired from the army 20 years ago. Spent the first 5 years trying to be a civilian. Tried to forget everything I'd learned, everything I'd done. How'd that work out? Terribly. I was miserable. My wife was miserable. My kids didn't know who I was. He shook his head. Then one day, I stopped fighting it. I joined a veterans organization. Started mentoring young soldiers. Taught ROTC classes at the local high school. And I was happy again. Because I accepted who I was. A soldier. Not an active one, but still a soldier. That never goes away. Emma looked at her hands. I don't want to go back. I don't want to make those decisions again. Maybe you don't have to. Maybe there's a middle ground. Before Emma could respond, her phone buzzed. Even turned off, it had powered back on somehow. She picked it up. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. Hello. Captain Emma Carter. The voice was male, authoritative, with a slight southern accent. Yes. Who is this? This is Colonel Bradley Matthews, United States Air Force, stationed at the Pentagon. I apologize for the late call, but I needed to reach you directly. Emma sat up straight. Sir. What can I do for you? Captain, I've been following the situation with Flight AA-492. Your actions today were extraordinary. Thank you, sir, but I'm retired. I'm not active duty anymore. I'm aware. And I'm not calling to change that, necessarily. But I have a proposition for you. Would you be willing to hear it? Emma glanced at George, who was watching her intently. I'm listening. The Air Force, in conjunction with Homeland Security and the FAA, is developing a new aviation security program. In light of today's events, and frankly in light of continuing threats to commercial aviation, we're looking to train commercial pilots and flight crews in crisis response. That makes sense. We need someone to head up the program. Someone with your unique combination of experience. Combat pilot training, real-world crisis response, and, as of today, documented success in neutralizing a hijacking threat. Emma's heart started beating faster. Sir, I'm not sure I'm the right person. Captain, you're exactly the right person. And before you decline, I want you to consider something. You walked away from the military because you didn't want to make life-or-death decisions anymore. I understand that. I respect it. But today proved something. You can take yourself out of the military, but you can't take the military out of yourself. When the moment came, you acted. And because you did, 173 people went home to their families. Emma was silent. This program wouldn't put you back in a fighter jet. It wouldn't send you to war zones. But it would allow you to use your skills to save lives. To train others to save lives. To maybe prevent what happened today from happening again. I need time to think about it. Of course. But Captain, I need an answer within a week. This program is launching soon, and you're our first choice. Our only choice, really. I understand, sir. One more thing. The story of what you did today is going to spread. It already is. You're going to have offers. Media appearances, book deals, movie rights. People are going to want to capitalize on your heroism. I don't want that. I know. But it's going to happen. This offer is different. This is a chance to turn what happened today into something meaningful. Something that can protect people for years to come. Emma thought about Rachel and her baby. About George and his military service. About all the passengers who thanked her. I'll think about it, sir. That's all I ask. I'll call you in 3 days to follow up. In the meantime, check your email. I'm sending you information about the program. Yes, sir. And Captain. Thank you for your service. Both your past service, and what you did today. The call ended. George raised his eyebrows. That sounded important. Emma told him about the offer. He nodded slowly. Sounds like fate to me. You believe in fate? I believe that some people are put in certain places at certain times for a reason. You were on that plane for a reason. To stop the hijackers. Maybe. Or maybe the hijacking was just the beginning. Maybe the real reason you were there was to remember who you are. And to realize that you're not done yet. Emma lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her mind was spinning with possibilities, questions, fears. But underneath it all, there was something else. A small spark of excitement. Maybe George was right. Maybe she wasn't done yet. Emma stood in front of a classroom at Randolph Air Force Base in Texas. 20 pilots and 30 flight attendants sat in rows, watching her. She wore her Air Force uniform again. The medals gleamed on her chest. Captain's bars on her shoulders. It had taken her 3 days to make the decision. 3 days of thinking, wrestling with old demons, and finally accepting what George and Agent Walsh and Colonel Matthews had all tried to tell her. She couldn't hide from who she was. "Good morning," she said. "My name is Captain Emma Carter. 6 months ago, I was on a hijacked plane. I was just a passenger. I wasn't supposed to do anything." She paused. "But I did. And today, I'm going to teach you what I learned. Not just about fighting or defense. But about making hard choices. About finding courage when you're terrified. About being the person who acts when everyone else freezes." The students leaned forward. "You might be a pilot for 20 years and never face a crisis. Or it might happen tomorrow. You don't know. But if it happens, you need to be ready." She clicked to the first slide. It showed Flight AA 492 on the tarmac in Denver, surrounded by emergency vehicles. "Let's begin." The training program became a massive success. Over 500 commercial pilots and flight crew members completed Emma's course in the first 6 months. The FAA made it a recommended certification. Airlines began requiring it. Emma became a reluctant public figure. She did a few interviews, always focusing on the training and preparedness rather than her own heroism. She declined movie deals and book offers. But she did agree to one thing: speaking at schools and veterans organizations about service, courage, and finding your purpose. At a high school in Denver, she stood on a stage in front of 500 teenagers. Most looked bored. Some were on their phones. "How many of you feel ordinary?" Emma asked. A few hands went up hesitantly. "How many of you think you're just average? Not special? Not capable of doing anything important?" More hands. "I felt that way too. After I left the Air Force, I convinced myself I was ordinary. Just Emma, the bookkeeper. Nobody special." She showed them a photo of Flight AA 492. Then this happened. And I realized something. Ordinary people do extraordinary things every day. The young mother on this plane who stayed calm for her baby. The elderly veteran who helped me. The flight attendants who kept passengers calm. The pilots who flew us safely to Denver. She looked out at the students. "You're all capable of more than you think. You all have skills, talents, courage you haven't discovered yet. And someday, you might be in a moment where those things matter. Where you have to choose between staying quiet or speaking up. Between hiding or acting." A girl in the front row raised her hand. "What if we make the wrong choice? Then you learn from it. But the worst choice is not choosing at all. The worst choice is staying frozen when you could have helped." Another student asked, "Were you scared on that plane?" "Terrified. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I acted anyway." How? Training helped. But more than that, I remembered why I became a pilot in the first place. I wanted to protect people. To serve something bigger than myself. I'd forgotten that. But in that moment, I remembered. She clicked to the next slide. It showed her in her Air Force uniform, younger, smiling, standing in front of an F-16. This was me 10 years ago. I thought I'd left this person behind. But she was always there, waiting for the right moment to come back. The students were paying attention now. My message to you is simple. Don't hide who you are. Don't bury your gifts because you're afraid or tired or hurt. The world needs you. All of you. Your courage, your compassion, your willingness to act. She smiled. You never know when your moment will come. But when it does, I hope you'll be ready. 1 year after the hijacking, the reunion took place in a hotel ballroom in Denver. Emma stood near the entrance, watching passengers arrive. Rachel came with Daniel, who was now a toddler running everywhere. George arrived with his wife and daughter. The businessman brought his whole family. One by one, they found Emma and thanked her again. You gave me another year with my grandson, the elderly woman from row 23 said, tears in her eyes. You saved my honeymoon, a young couple said, showing her wedding pictures. You inspired me to join the Air Force, a teenage boy said. He had been one of the college students laughing at phone videos when the hijacking started. Emma hugged them all. She cried with them. She listened to their stories about the year since that day. At the end of the night, the airline presented her with an award. She accepted it gracefully but deflected the praise to the pilots, the flight attendants, the passengers who kept calm. As people began to leave, George found her one last time. How are you, Captain? Really? Emma looked around the ballroom. At all the lives that continued because of one moment. One decision. I'm good, George. Really good. No more running. No more running. I know who I am now. And I'm okay with it. What's next? The training program is expanding internationally. I'm traveling to Europe next month to train crews there. After that, who knows? But I'm not afraid of it anymore. George saluted her. Proud of you, Captain. She returned the salute. Thank you for seeing me when I was trying to be invisible. You were never invisible. You just thought you were. Flight AA 492's route, Miami to Seattle, continued to operate. Different pilots, different crew, different passengers each week. But in seat 14C on one particular Tuesday morning, a woman sat reading a book. She was in her 50s, gray hair, simple clothes. Nobody knew she was a retired surgeon who had worked in war zones for 20 years. Nobody knew she had saved hundreds of lives. Nobody knew that if something went wrong, she would be ready. Because the world is full of quiet heroes. People who look ordinary. Who blend in. Who don't seek attention. But when their moment comes, they rise. Emma Carter was one of them. But she wasn't the only one. They're everywhere. On planes, in schools, in offices and homes and grocery stores. Ordinary people capable of extraordinary things. Waiting for their moment. And when that moment comes, the world discovers what was there all along. Not hidden. Not gone. Just waiting.